Welcome to OJ Chit Chats, where the conversation is always juicy. I'm Unyo, and with me is Jake Abdullah. And our guest today is Yeoh Oon Lai, who shall we say is a mutual acquaintance. Actually, he's my brother, but that's not the reason why he's here today. But he's actually somewhat of an expert in retail, and that's going to be the topic of our conversation today. But before we start, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about how you got to know each other?
I think we got to know each other through the MCO 1.0 when I was at FAVE, and so I reached out to Lai and reached out to try to see how we can help most of the retailers and people who are offline to try to go online. So I think it started out that, and he responded, and we got to know each other through that. And then he was raving about his brother who was a media specialist. So I think that's how we connected. Yeah.
Actually, both of you were indirectly connected earlier through, I guess, in a way, Ananda Krishnan. Right?
That's right. So Lai was with TGV, and I was with Astro for about 23 years. So I think that's the common denominator there.
Did you guys know each other back then?
Know of him, yeah, because I had a few of my ex-colleagues working there.
Well, since you mentioned FAVE, can you talk a little bit about it?
Well, FAVE was very peculiar that time for me, and I was just like, after 23 years, I just got tired of media. I knew it was downslide. I knew radio will not sustain the momentum it had. The glory days are over, sunset phase. So I told myself, and my ethos in life is actually very simple. If stop complaining. If you got something to do, do it. So I told myself I need to get out and try something. So I got into FAVE. FAVE is a payment gateway. So it's not an e-wallet. What it does is offline to online. But my timing that I joined, although when I retrospect, I'll say, hey, it could have been better, but it was a trying time. So by the time I got in, it was already COVID and MCO, and with offline all closed, what do you do? So we tried our best and came to a point. I said, you know what? I told myself I already hit 55, and I said I got to pursue my passions, and I think this is one of it.
Right. So, well, I mean, since you mentioned the MCO or the COVID thing has affected all of us in, I think, every aspects of business and life, but I think the sector that's really most hard hit, one of the hardest hit is retail.
I worked with a lot of these retailers, and we tried our best. We did, the government came in with Panjana and stuff, but there's only so much you can do if they're not open. The Pa and Ma shops, the small shops, it takes time for them to digitalize, it takes time for them to understand the new economy and stuff like that, how people transact and stuff like that. In terms of the bigger shops, like, if they have not already embraced digitalization and online shopping and all that in MCO 1.0, now they are already going to suffer. I see a lot of them closing down. I see a lot of them not sustaining. So very troubling times. Like, I got friends who own large companies, large retails, are actually scaling down, retrenching staff, and they tried everything,
Lai, let me bring you into this, and let me ask you. I mean, retail, of course, is a very big topic, and it covers a lot of things. But let me ask you this big question. From what you can see, since MCO, from the time of MCO 1.0 to MCO 2.0, do you think retailers have adapted well, or are they just back to square one, just like the first time?
So a few comments there. They've definitely adapted. Adapted well is pretty relative. I think some have adapted quite fast. So they're far more prepared this time around, which is probably about 10 months from the original MCO. If I could comment on retail, the entire universe of retail is actually fairly broad. So there are broadly two segments. One is everything Jake spoke about, which is the mom and pop and all the small trades, as well as everything that's outside the mall, in the shop lots and everything. I think retail, as a lot of Malaysians sometimes immediately think of it as well, is retail within the malls. And that's a different animal altogether. You could argue there's actually more retail outside the malls than within the malls, but I think a lot of times the association is with malls. And within the malls, the layperson's understanding is pretty accurate, it's pretty fundamental. You own a shop, you pay the rental, you pay the staff, and you sell products or services of some sort. But I think one key thing we can distinguish within mall retail is that there's such a thing called a tenant mix. There's a lot of different trades, and what has happened, a lot of trades have suffered because consumption moved away from them. It wasn't a priority during this time period, or the activity wasn't permitted at all. For example, entertainment, cinema. And in some cases, certain types of F&B, perhaps because of pricing, because of other issues, they were de-emphasized. A lot of money went into essentials, supermarkets, those type of trades, because the consumption dollars went in that direction. So I think these are the trends there, and the challenge with the government and in terms of the support they've tried to give to retail is they lacked a fundamental understanding of all the nuances of retail per se. And they didn't distinguish sufficiently among the different trades and the different category types, different operators. There's a lot there. It's actually quite complicated.
If you're a retailer and the mall that you operate in is closed, okay, well, this time it's not closed, but the first time it was closed, right? Well, this time actually for most retail it is still closed except for F&B.
There are certain trades that are allowed to open, so
yeah.
the essentials this time is definitely broader in terms of who can operate.
So let's say you happen to be in retail in a segment that cannot operate. It's not essential. Let's say you're a fashion shop or something like that. And you're in this mall and you're paying rent and you're not allowed to operate. What recourse do you have? Do you have a basis to say to the mall, hey, look, I can't operate. I don't want to pay rent, or I only want to pay partial rent. What recourse do you have if you're not able to operate?
So here's the fundamental difference between MCO1 and MCO2. I think what has happened in MCO2 is a lot of retailers have scaled back their workforce. So, in MCO1, you have full workforce, normal conditions, and you're generally, for a period of time, fully paying that workforce. And then you realize, wow, this is going to be a long haul. And then you're starting to trim back. So they're probably leaner and more efficient. The second part of it is trickier because it depends on the specific landlord and who you're dealing with. You're definitely engaging with your landlord for rental relief. But I think at this point in time, there's this concept of COVID fatigue among the landlords and the property owners. They've been helping and assisting to a certain degree since March last year. So at some point, when do they say that, okay, I think I've helped enough? So there is no, there are very few situations where you're going to get full rental relief or huge rental relief at this juncture. I think you're going to get partial rental relief at best. And you don't really have a legal recourse per se. You have a moral ability to work with your landlord, appeal to their better sensibilities.
I think it's, with MCO2, the stipulations are kind of vague also, because when the Prime Minister was talking about it, he says, hey, if you got a problem, this go to AP, some credit, what do you call it, government body to complain and stuff like that. But the truth of the matter is, most of these guys are also paying rental, the mall owners or stuff like the owner, they're also paying rental, because I have a friend who said, but I got to pay rental. So if I give him 50% discount, then what do I do?
Or they're paying their banks.
So what do they do? Without the moratorium, they also are stuck. So, because when I was reading the Prime Minister's, the speech, and to me, even I'm confused. Like, hang on. Do we have a moratorium or do we have not? I can't remember the name of the agency. It's APK or something like that. Like, I'm not sure what it is, but yeah. So I think most of them are stuck. A classic example is gym owners. So like Fitness First and Celebrity Fitness and stuff like all of them are stuck. What can they do? They can't open. Are they essential? Not essential. So so most of them are going to go through. And this is again, like I said, I'll be saying 2 weeks, and I think you're smarter than this. Is 2 weeks will go down to 4 weeks, and 4 weeks to 6 weeks. Chinese New Year will pass, because I don't think they're going to rescind this anytime soon with all the celebrations down the road. I mean,
to Jake's point, certain trades who are really technically mini anchors or anchors to a mall, I consider gyms in that category, department stores, cinemas, other types of entertainment like karaoke and whatnot. And then, of course, the supermarket is one of the big anchors as well. So supermarkets are open. Department stores are...
Not really. I haven't seen them open. Harvey Norman was closed when I went to the
Oh,
mall.
really? Harvey Norman is considered furniture. I think furniture is allowed to open. So
Yeah,
if
but
they close, maybe it's a business decision. Huh?
yeah, probably, yeah.
I think depending on where you are, sometimes the traffic is so low, you might as well be closed.
Mm.
What I think is weird is that if you notice in the initial announcement, goldsmiths and jewelry shops
Yeah.
were allowed, which doesn't kind of make sense, right? I mean,
You got me there because, I had friends who tried to get married during this MCO also, and they had to, they had to postpone it and stuff like so. That got me also. Why are these jewelry shops staying, allowed to operate as a necessity? Yeah.
I think technically they probably aren't a necessity, but they are. I was reading somewhere in one of the media reports, they are considered or classified as semi-essential because you can trade in your gold. It's the equivalent of a pawn shop, but more specific products, of course. Yeah.
Because they'll take it like at 50%.
Yeah, they'll take it. They'll take it at a fraction of what it's actually worth. So not really a good option.
do you think that, since malls are quite empty now, except for, even some restaurants in the malls are not open, right? Only certain restaurants are open. Some simply choose not to open. So the malls are kind of deserted, except for the supermarket and maybe the pharmacy and a few restaurants. So if there's a furniture store there or a goldsmith or a department store, should they open? Is it more expensive to open than to stay closed?
I think it's a business decision. Depending on, like you said, like the Harvey Norman near my place is closed. When they should stay open, I think it's a business decision. I think it's staff. I think a lot of uncertainties has allowed employers to like I have a friends working there and it says it's 40% pay reduction. Everybody's pushed to the corner already, and this and if you lose your job, what do? I'd rather take 40% than don't take salary. So it's a precarious situation. I have a friend who is working in a very large sporting this one, and they had a 50% pay reduction, and it's going on. And the boss told him, says, if you want to leave, you leave, or you just carry on here and take it, and you work the same hours. You see,
Right.
So a lot of stress, and at this present time to look for another job and all that is also daunting. So yeah.
I would say a 50% pay reduction in any circumstances is extremely daunting. So you have to consider your personal circumstances.
Are they allowed to do that, or must it be voluntary that the staff has agreed to take the pay
Yeah,
reduction?
the staff has to agree and sign on something. That much I know, because when I was in FAVE, most of the senior staff, all of us took 40%. But you have to sign, you have to agree on it.
That is correct. I'm familiar with these exercises too. Generally, what it comes down to is whether there's a lot of pressure to sign, so to speak. And usually that is the case, because what happens next is there might be a retrenchment. That's usually the next step. And usually who's going to be the first that gets retrenched? The people who don't agree to pay reductions. So you weren't buying into it to begin with. That's usually how it works.
And that's legal, is it? That's all legal?
For all intents and purposes, that is legal. Yeah, I mean, a company can decide who they wish to retrench if they're eliminating headcount, eliminating departments.
The impact on retail is going to last for quite a long time. It's not just going to be a few weeks or even a few months. It'll be. I think it'll last maybe a year or so. The impact or more. Will retail recover, or will we see really massive bankruptcies?
If I crystal ball gaze into this and look at my own purchase patterns in the last year, and I actually did this, I'm saying how much money have I spent online compared to before, and even when this short period between MCO1 and MCO2, I was doing a lot of online shopping already, because again, like I say, it's a convenience. You don't have to. I think a lot of there was some article I read it's interesting that we don't have to interact with people to buy, which is and then when we purchase from a certain online shop and the quality is good, we continue to go that way. So I guess, again, like I said, people are getting used to it. My children who are already adults, I've never seen them go out and buy anything. They buy everything online. When I ask them, what do you want for your birthday? They just give me the money, I'll buy it online. So if you think about it, you see, we are already beginning to trust. There's a trust element. So I think that's really important. If you go back 10 years ago, for us to use our credit card online, we'll be worried that we'll be scammed.
Yeah, true. So
I think
now everybody's comfortable with online.
Yeah, everybody's comfortable. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of security involved and all that. But what I think is to me, if you ask my personal opinion, I like the fact that I don't have to talk to anybody. You know, I get better. You know, like there's 11/11 or there's a Black Friday or something. I get a better sale. You know, I wait for the time and I go and purchase it. So I think that retailers, if you ask me, post MCO era, retail shops will dwindle. You know, my clothes I buy all online. You know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all I buy my clothes online. So what I'm using is online. It's $5, you know. So
it sounds like you buy a lot from the United States, huh?
Yeah, from anywhere, you know. So, and these days, there was this article that came out that tracking and analytics. And I was talking to my friend the other day on the phone about Circle DNA, some DNA testing, and the next day on my social sites, I can see Circle DNA already. So
they know what you're looking at.
I think that online purchase gives us the ability to scout.
Well, I mean, I think certain types of retail, I mean, I guess restaurants are considered retail as well, has a social element to it, right? People like to eat together. And maybe you could say the same for cinemas and certain things.
No, I would disagree with you there. I don't think so. People like to eat together anymore, you know. Gone are the days where families sit and eat together. You know, my son's ordering his food half the time. You know.
But he might be eating with his friends, not so much with you, Jake. Is that possible?
I don't know. I miss the old days, but what can you do? You can't beat it. You see.
Yeah, but I mean, for those type of retail where there's no social element at all, like just buying a gadget or buying some merchandise where you don't go to Mr. DIY for social. I mean, you don't go there with friends. You go there to buy something, right?
Yes.
So those type, I think, will be the one that are most under threat because there's no social element. Your only purpose is to buy. So you might as well just buy online. But if a shop has a little bit of a social element, then I think it has a better chance to thrive.
What would your example be of that?
Apart from social per se, let's just call it experiential. That's the common used word. So going to a gym, going to a cinema, and I still do think going to certain types of restaurants. I mean, we spoke about tenant mix earlier when we were talking about malls, right? So what's indisputable is tenant mix have to shift towards more experiential retail. Commoditized retail, the broad trend, what's happening is there'll be less stores. Some physical store presence, of course, but if in the old days you could have had 100 stores, maybe now you just need 30 stores, and a lot of it moves online. So that's probably where the evolution's happening. But like, Jake, you're a big gym guy. There's a reason why people go to the gyms, right? I mean, as opposed to working out at home, right?
I'll be very honest with you. I used to love going to the gyms. When I was working in Bangsar, I used to go to Chi Fitness across the road. It was 1 hour of my time. But circumstance doesn't allow me to go and work out in the gym. It's not safe, So what I did was I built a gym in my house. I seriously took a small space and I said, you know what? If I don't think this is going to improve. For the last few months, I've put a bench, I put a rack, I put some dumbbells. I've bought everything online, and I built a gym. So, if you ask me, do I miss going to the gym? I mean, for eye candy, nice lah. You can look around. Let's be honest lah. But other than that, no. I think it's no more convenient. I get up in the morning, I'm working out, and I'm done. So
I have a feeling, Jake, that you're the type of person that you're very goal specific. So when you want to work out, your purpose is to work out, not to socialize. When you want to eat, your purpose is to eat. And maybe when you want to watch a show, your main purpose is to watch a show. But there are those people out there who, when they drink or when they see a movie or when they work out or when they eat, they want to do it with friends.
I agree
it's
with you.
It's a communal experience.
Yeah. They like the networking. They like that experience.
Quite a lot of people are like that.
And you're absolutely right. That's why there was a massive expansion on classes like fly cycle, boxing classes, Muay Thai classes, because they like that network. But those are the ones who are massively hit currently.
True. I guess fitness studios, dance studios, judo clubs like the one that I run, and gyms and all that are all shut down now. And I think in the case of gyms in particular, my sense is that the reason why there were so many cases in so many gyms is that they really didn't follow the safety protocol. From what I see on social media, in many gyms, because it's not required, people didn't wear masks. They didn't really socially distance. They were spotting each other when they were working out and stuff like that. But I mean, you yourself mentioned that you find that gyms to be a not safe place, right? You weren't comfortable going.
Yeah, because somebody's holding the bar, somebody's holding in. Half the
Exactly.
people are sanitizing, half the people are not sanitizing, and I told myself, look, and I don't want to be a part of this because, I'm very confident that I've got a very good immune system. But again, like I said, I got parents, I got kids, I got this. I don't want to put anybody at risk here. So, and you're right. So the gyms claim like, yes, we are sanitizing and stuff like that. But yeah, you're doing your part. But I guess the average person is a bit loose on, like you said.
I agree.
Yeah.
So Jake, I mean, like, let's say post-COVID, whether it be 2022 or whatnot, can the gyms get back to where they were? Will they win back the business of people like you?
Yeah, I don't think I will go to large chain gyms anymore. Like, I have a ethos, like, and I told myself, my wife and I told ourselves, like, look, post-COVID, we need to help as many local retailers as possible, a local gym and pay daily and work out because we need to help these people. So I might do that because of that, but I won't go to a, like a big, large chain gym,
But why not? Is it mainly because of lingering concerns about safety, or is it because of a philosophical?
Yeah, it's more philosophical because, again, like I said, the ones that have been affected largely are these small guys. They don't have large corporations backing them, and they don't have large coffers to back them up. I was speaking to Terry Galliard, is former Mr. Asia, and he's running a gym in Malawati for the last 30 years. And I was talking to his wife, Julian, she's former Miss World, So, and Terry also is Mr. Asia 3 times. And 30 years they're running the gym, and the owner says, look, you got to pay, they're closed down now. The owner wants full rental. He doesn't want to go down 50%. So they're under threat of closing down, a legacy gym like that. So it's sad. So, that's why I keep telling my friends, even if it's $10 a day, just go and pay and train, keep them alive. It's nothing for us, but it might mean something for them,
No, I think that's one good message we can draw from today's chat too. We should support local businesses. I think everybody's hurting, but the local businesses are arguably hurting the most and need the most help.
But let me ask you, Jake, you're somebody who has this philosophical approach to it. You want to help out local gyms, and also you yourself, you're a trainer, so you know how to train yourself and so on. But do you think that for the lay person, the average person who used to go to the gym pre-COVID, do you think that post-COVID, when there's no more safety concern, let's say everybody's, we've got herd immunity, everything's back to normal, safety is not a consideration, would they go back to that type of lifestyle, going to the gym, or will they just, after a year or so of working out on their own, they just stick to working out on their own? What do you think?
I think 50% will drop off because, again, they realize, like, hey, if you go to YouTube now, you know what I mean, 30 minutes you can do a workout. But if you're asking whether this big gyms will stay open, I think that they will stay open, but they have to reevaluate their business strategy.
50% is a huge number. I hope he's not right.
No, if you're talking about gym, I think 50% will drop off because half of the people who are used to a certain way and realize that they're saving money will drop off. So
what you're saying is that basically, after a year or two of living a certain lifestyle where they are learning on YouTube or learning in an online group and getting used to a certain lifestyle, once they are able to go back to the old way, they don't want to go back to the old way because they're used to it already.
What about you? I mean, the COVID, what are the changes that you have embraced and still holding on to?
I've done a lot more online shopping, gotten very used to it. So even when I can go back to, going to a mall to shop or whatever, if it's just to buy a commodity, not for an experiential kind of thing, but I just want to buy a gadget or device, I'll just buy online. I don't think I'll go to a shop if I don't have to. I guess the other thing is, during all this time, I haven't gone to a bookstore, and I don't think I'll be buying books anymore. I'll just read online or or buy ebooks and read.
Yeah, but there are different things, right? Oon and Jake. I mean, you guys would go to a cafe, your favorite cafe, have your coffee with your friend. You still miss that, right? I mean,
Experiential stuff, maybe I'll still do, yeah, but not for buying commodities.
That's a good point you brought up, like, because again, like I said, socializing is important, and I think people miss that the most. In terms of socializing, also there are other factors that we have sort of overlooked a little bit. I think the children are suffering the most because they don't have a say in this. Schools are not open, playgrounds are closed. It's the domino effect is immense here. You think about it. Like I was talking to somebody at train, and she was saying, like, what, her children went to school for one day, and then it was MCO again, and they came back, and she's struggling right now because there's a huge impact on these children. So I guess post COVID, a very good thing or opportunity is experiential for the young kids. I think
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, because they miss it. They miss the parks. They miss going out. They miss running.
So I think you've got a good point. So if businesses are looking for, or businessmen or businesswomen are looking for business opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities, maybe is to look at the children's sector and say post-COVID, what can we do?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is very important for kids to socialize. That's how they develop their skills as human beings, right?
Totally.
I mean, kids, they're during their development stage, it's very important for them to interact.
Totally, they need it the most.
Let me throw this question to both of you guys. So for those businesses that are commodity based, that are not experiential, I have no doubt that cafes and all that will rebound actually. And gyms, not so sure, maybe, and cinemas, not so sure. That's another topic we can talk about later. But let's say for non-experiential type of businesses, where you can just buy the same thing online, maybe cheaper, what can they do?
I mean, it's kind of what Jake was talking to earlier, which is traffic will probably drop. If like the gyms are saying that if you're just waiting around for pre-COVID 2019 normal, I think you're kidding yourself. That's not going to happen. But whether it drops 20% or 50%, we're not sure, right? It could be, in the best case scenario, maybe it drops 15, 20%. In the worst case scenario, maybe 50%. And we're talking post-COVID, and then maybe it slowly builds from there. So I think two things have to happen. Number one, the business model has to shift. And in some cases, maybe you rationalize the number of locations you have because you might be over-distributed in the new economy, so to speak. The other thing is technology has to be better. Touching back the full circle to what we were saying, companies unfortunately have to know us better. Like they know what Jake is looking at and everything. Because usually if you're a business of any size, you've got a lot of customers coming through your door. And for years, you didn't really have to know what their preferences were, what their propensity was. You had very little consumer insight, let alone consumer data. But I think in the future, they're going to know a lot more about you, and they're going to engage with you a lot more digitally because they have to. I think, and that's what's happening in the entire world, right? You could say arguably the social media companies know too much about us. And then, every organization over time will know a lot about you, hopefully not in a creepy way, but more towards your propensity and how you consume.
Classic example, like this t-shirt I bought, this shop is so good online. Every 4 or 5 days, they remind me, they say, hey, Jake, this is coming up. You got a 15%, a Jake minus 15% here. So just by prodding me, I made a few more purchases. If you think about it, online, I can reach you more. The data is there. I can remind you that, hey, you haven't been here for a long time.
Exactly.
Unlike this brick and mortar shops, which you go there and they forget about you. So right now, the access to the consumer has become so important already. And the ones who are engaging with the consumer more online, not in, like you said, not in a creepy way, but, hey, Jake, it's your birthday. Classic example, I sent my wife some roses the other day. Don't ask me why, but it's a month from Valentine's now, right? And they said, hey, we got a VIP thing here, so you don't have to order a day before Valentine's. You can do it now. We'll send it during Valentine's, but it's the normal price. Now that to me is service. You know what I mean? So it's a necessity. For me, it's a necessity. Like, you better send roses to your wife on Valentine's or in the doghouse, But think about it, But if they had not told me, then I probably would have forgotten. So information is very important.
Based on what Jake says, it's so easy to buy online and they can remind you and they know your preferences and so on. What can a brick and mortar store, that sells clothes or fashion, what can they do in light of all of this? They're being challenged left and right online. What can a brick and mortar store do?
I think these are overused terms, but generally the offline, online, online, offline, there is that relationship still. You bought a pair of shoes, you bought a t-shirt, you bought a polo shirt, it doesn't quite fit. If you could conveniently just drop by your neighborhood store and get an exchange, or a refund, which Adidas actually does, that's a great service, and every now and then people will want to come to a nice Adidas store and see the entirety of the range, because it is a little bit different from clicking through a lot of images online. There is a certain science and art to traditional retail, how you visually merchandise the store, how the store is assorted, which is kind of lost now in translation because of 2020. So, that experience part, even sports retail, traditional retail, there's an experiential component that you can integrate. But like we said, the new reality, probably less stores. And the ones, because in a particular catchment area, you don't need 5 stores anymore. Maybe you need 2, because a lot of that volume has moved online. But there's an online-offline relationship that, for me, being a traditional retailer, I still believe exists. It just exists in a different form.
These brick and mortar shops, that sell clothes and other merchandise, they need to have a very strong online component to complement their offline. Is that what you're saying?
For sure. And I think the broader angle there is your technology has to be better. How you manage your inventory on the back end, how you aggregate consumer data and parse through the consumer data, and the use case that you develop from the consumer data, right? What if somebody knew your wife's birthday? I think that would be helpful. That's great service if you gave me suggestions and I was a brand you liked. Somebody knew your anniversary. You don't want to forget that. Don't talk about Valentine's Day, Jake. You forget about your anniversary, I think you're in bigger trouble.
How many mom and pop shops are into that though? Maybe the big ones can do that, but the mom and pop shops, a lot of them don't even have a website.
Well, so it's an education process, it's an evolution, right? And everything has evolved really quickly. I think a mom and pop shop that's insightful could do it, because everything's more affordable.
You don't need to actually do it now. A lot of third-party people are actually
that's true.
to do it. People like Fave are third-party operators for turning offline into online very fast. You see so many of it, like Food Panda. Like you see so many of them actually helping this experience, because to ask this, your traditional mom and pop shop to go online, it's so daunting for them. They're like, how am I going to do it? So I think another industry has grown to third-party providers, and you will see, hardware, you will see all this, eventually happening. Otherwise, they'll lose out, because there is a generation, unlike us or like me, and people like us who grew into the digital realm. There is a, like 16, 15, if you're 20 and below right now, you grew up,
digital are born, natives.
Digital natives. They don't understand why we are doing things the traditional way, Really?
Very true.
Yeah. So I think we, think about 10 years ago, guys. Just think about 10 years ago, how we transacted and all that, and think about now. And if I come from a radio background, and I question this to my people I train. I said, nobody's listening to you guys anymore. What are you going to do? Nobody's going to, so again, like I said, I think the need to understand, then to be very honest to yourself and say, or you can draw a line in the sand and say, you know what, don't worry, I'm going to be here. Or you can say, you know what, I have to change or I'm going to disappear. So I guess that's really important right now. And there are a lot of people disappearing.
Do you think that among the survivors, this has hit home and they realize, hey, I've really got to evolve my business model. I've got to change with the times.
Let me be very honest, necessity is the mother of all invention. There are people who I know who are pilots, have now burger shops. Today I saw on LinkedIn a guy who was a pilot. Now he's doing Sing delivery, Mr. Sing delivery. We have never been in this situation before. Think about it. I mean, I'm 56 this year. I've never seen this in my life before.
Yeah, true. It's once in a life.
Yeah.
Once in 100 years, actually.
Yes, we are all speaking about surviving.
But Jake, surviving could be two ways, right? One is to completely get out of that industry and open a burger shop, for example, or it's adapting your business model and changing. Like I was just talking to Lai earlier about how he didn't realize that Air Asia is now delivering.
My daughter works there.
Right, so he's trying to change the business model. So I guess my question is, for pilots, they have no choice. They have to end up doing something else because the planes aren't flying. But for business owners, for retailers and so on, do you think that it has finally hit home to them that they've got to get really digital and understand their customers more, do better CRM?
I think you just nailed it, because the apportionment of their resources now have to be relooked. You're talking about CRM, you're talking about data. I guess the budgeting, the allocation of funds into the necessities now have to take on a different route. Before, we said earlier, in the online realm, it's so important. Data is so important. But using data is even more important. So, but these mom and pop shops don't have to do it. There's so many third-party operators who can do it. But to answer your question, are they aware? If they are not aware now, by the end of the year, most of them will be out of business already. I mean, this is a story for another podcast, because how it has changed media consumption also.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So traditional media has died.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a topic for another podcast that we could do several podcasts about that.
On that, yeah.
But let me ask you. I mean, Jake brought up that there are a lot of these online platforms that, I mean, if you're a restaurant, you could use Grab Food or AirAsia or Food Panda and so on. If you're a merchandise shop, you could go on Lazada or Shopee. But is that enough, or do they need to have their own shop for branding purposes, or maybe to own the data more? What do you think?
I think if you're literally a mom and pop, you're much better off going with the aggregators and the third party, because you're gonna get the traffic, right? I mean, it's one thing to build a website or online storefront. If there's no traffic generation, then it just looks good, but it doesn't help you in any meaningful fashion. I think so it's a continuum, it's a spectrum. If you're mid-sized to larger, then that's where you can start thinking about getting your own data and curating the experience for the customer, because that's what the aggregators will not really do for you per se, unless they were specific defined programs, right? If I was a more higher value added service, and I needed to know what this guy's consumption pattern was, what were milestones in his life, his birthday, his wife's birthday, his anniversary, things like that, so that I can curate a higher ticket, higher value experience. If I was somebody planning vacations or special events or something like that, then there's some real value being sophisticated and having some proprietary data. But if you're a mom and pop shop and you're catering to mass market, and right now you're trying to make a quick pivot, definitely use what's out there. It's actually the most affordable, best way to do it. Long term, you might want to be more efficient, because these guys, the reality, they take a big cut out of you, like the Grab Food, the Food Panda, all that. Yeah, but I think they bring the traffic, they bring the consumer velocity to you at the onset. So situational.
Like, just to address what you said earlier just now about this restaurants and stuff, I went to My Burger Lab just in between of this MCO. I was sitting there. There's only two people in the shop, or two people. Yeah. But the amount of Grab and Food Panda people, there was like about 100 people waiting outside.
Yeah. They just want convenience, right? They want convenience. Yes. No, so I do agree with what Jake says about how when people get acclimatized to a certain lifestyle for a long period of time, it's hard to go back. It's just like talk about media consumption. If you're used to reading online, you're forced to read online because you can't go to a bookstore, then after a while, if you've been reading ebooks for 2 years, you're not going to go back to normal books, because you're used to it already, right? So if let's say I mean, the only reason I still go to grocery stores, supermarkets, is that the online grocery which I've used is not that efficient yet. It's not that they're not as up to date with what's in stock. They don't list out everything that's available. If it was perfectly done and I can get whatever I want when I want, then I would use online. I wouldn't bother to go to the supermarket, but I do bother to go because certain things that I'm looking for are not listed. So I'm not so satisfied with the quality of that service. That's the only reason I still go. Otherwise, to me, supermarket is like a commodity, right? I just want to get the thing. It's not an experience.
I think I would characterize it as, I mean, one important distinction is what's your primary purpose for doing an activity? I'll give you an example. I mean, like a lot of people like to go to happy hour and you have a drink with your mates, right? Your primary purpose there is not really to drink the whiskey or the beer. It is a major purpose, but your primary purpose is to socialize with your friends, right? So I think there's a possibility that comes back. If you're talking about your primary purpose is to fill your belly, and you just want some wholesome food, I think you could do that outside the restaurant, and that's where the food delivery equation comes. So a lot of your consumption pattern, what you do, there's usually a primary purpose, a secondary purpose, maybe a stretch purpose. This is all the retail science kind of thing. So I think if the primary purpose is to experience something, to socialize, something to that effect that's not replicable, then I think you've still got something defensible that that will bring the customer back. Yeah.
Can I ask you, which shop do you miss the most?
I miss going to the movies. I miss going to the cinemas. I actually went to see Wonder Woman in Putrajaya because it was the only.
It was the only place in all of the central region you could actually watch.
All of Klang Valley.
I'm not sure whether you're aware of this, Jay. The reason why that was open is because it's in Putrajaya, which was not subject to the CMCO when guys like Oon, they're a beacon for the industry where there are these customers that are still willing to go there.
All the way to Putrajaya just to watch it.
Wow.
I'm a little bit biased because I was recently at TGV, but I missed the full cinematic experience. The anticipation of going to the movies, especially if it's a nice cinema, let's say IMAX, large format, with the sound, and then you had a great time.
Are you a moviegoer, Jake?
I am actually, because I worked in Astro and TGV used to give me free passes every week and stuff. I pop by once in a while, but yeah, if I was it's a weighted question actually. I actually miss the cinema experience. Although I'm not a big Avengers fan.
Star Wars, no?
Yeah. Star Wars, yes, definitely.
Yeah, you would like to see that in the cinema, wouldn't you? I mean,
definitely, I would not. Honestly, to me, what I really miss is concerts. So I think post-COVID, that's going to come back very big.
Because it can't be replicated, right?
Exactly.
The event experience, so to speak. Yeah.
But do you think cinemas will, if they survive, do you think that they can come back and rebound like before?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Because look, in terms of online experience, you got all your people are downloading torrents, and you got Netflix, and you got Amazon Prime, and you got HBO Go and stuff. But cinema still stayed alive because, and for the simple fact that you said, it's experiential. People like the whole ritual of picking somebody up, going to the cinemas, buying the popcorn, sitting down, great sound system, enjoying, talking about it, the experience of walking out. It's brilliant.
If live concerts and below that cinemas and other things, they represent the apex experience, right? So you imagine a gym, getting back to the gym thing, or a restaurant. You know how sometimes a gym has the right atmosphere, it has the right energy level, and maybe it has people who are serious about working out and everything, and then that's an environment you like, the experience. Likewise, you might have your favorite restaurant. A lot of people like restaurants with other people inside. There's a certain vibe, there's a certain energy level that makes the restaurant, right? It's the food, of course, but there's also the whole ambience and the environment. So I think, there are these experiential things that kind of make for the entirety of the experience that people pay for and consume regularly. And we're missing all of that right now, so to speak.
Another aspect that will actually pick up is nightlife. I think nightlife has been, you're talking about pubs and discos and clubs and karaokes and stuff like that. A lot of the socializing was done there, and for various reasons. I think that will and I come from a nightlife background, and I see all these people suffering, musicians, and there is going to be an explosion on that. There's going to be lots of this popping up. So I think there's opportunity there also, if if you sort of think about it, because people want what they have not got.
But the big question, I think, is whether the suppliers of all these type of services can survive long enough to still be standing. Let's take the case of cinemas, right? Everybody agrees people will want to go back and watch movies, blockbusters in cinemas. But will cinemas still be around 1-2 years from now if they are shut for a long time? Similarly, a lot of tourism business have closed down, right? We know tourism will rebound when they're allowed to do it, but will a lot of these guys still be around? And as for concerts, for bands and for comedians and those in the entertainment line, will they still be around? Or will they gone off and do other businesses, and by that time they'll be like, no, I'm not performing anymore, because for the past 2 years I've been selling burgers or whatever.
I think it's a tough one. It's a really tough one. To me, it's like I said, I think people are jaded already. Those who are jaded will just give up. I think what's going to happen is it will come back, but it'll not be the same people. And I think that is going to be very prevalent in the coming, post-COVID.
So when you say new players will come in to fill the void, right? So what you're saying is that, for example, let's say a bunch of people who are entertainers today, if they're not able to perform and they've been out of work for 1.5 years, 2 years, they might have moved on to other businesses. And what you're saying is that a new generation will crop up, right? A new generation.
Definitely, I do believe that. I give you an example, like a musician friend of mine who was the lead singer for the band Hydra. Okay, a big band that performed all over in KL in pub scene. Everybody knows them. When this thing happened, I celebrate him because he went back to Langkawi and he opened a nasi lemak business. Because again, like I said, he's doing, but he's very smart. So he's trying to keep his profile alive, but. Overall, what they are saying is, hey, hang on, I'm making money here. This is more lucrative. This is more stable. Why do I have to go back to that? So, for fear of that, I think fear is going to be the big driver or going to stifle them from going back into this. But the new players who might want to, take advantage of the void there and says, you know what, we could do this, we could do that, will emerge. Definitely, because you know why? People will still want entertainment, interaction, networking, so this will happen. Yeah.
But let's say your friend, who's now has a successful nasi lemak business, assuming it really booms, the nasi lemak business, really grows from strength to strength. 2 years later, he's doing really well with that business, right? And then you're allowed to play music again. Will he go back to music, or do you think he'll just stick to his?
Maybe it won't be his main source of income. Maybe it might be just he'll be moonlighting as that, because passions are passions. People still, gravitate back to that. Right. But I think we are all, in a situation where livelihood is number one. So, and we are so afraid that we lose the, cari makan lah, so as to say, we'll definitely find something more stable. Everybody I've spoken to says, you know what, I just need to survive. I just need to survive. Look at the work that's coming. I just need to survive, bro. I need to see this through. Scary.
It's definitely insightful for Jake to say that new players, new iterations of previous things we liked will emerge.
What do you see for the next 12 months happening in the retail scene?
Well, I definitely see things being suppressed very highly suppressed for the next 6 months, with the second half holding a little bit of hope. I mean, let's just hope the vaccination rollout is a little bit faster, and we get it under control. A lot depends on how serious, which we don't have full visibility to, our whole situation is right now, locally, right? What will clearly happen in retail is that, especially among the big players, department stores, cinema, maybe gyms, there'll be some dislocation. There might be consolidation. There'll likely be some attrition. I'm predicting that maybe a few more players might go out of business, and there'll be some consolidation. The strongest will prosper, but I think the weaker hands might struggle. I think I'm kind of seeing that. But I mean, for the big players right now, whether it be cinema or hotel, I think there'll definitely be casualties, and that's where the government has to be proactive, because actually they haven't done enough. I mean, not to be overly critical. Of course, there are demands everywhere, but they haven't done enough to educate themselves about industries who are particularly distressed, have employ a lot of people, are critical to the economy, and once they're gone, it's going to be very hard to replace, actually. Um, and to a certain degree, uh, maybe things will never be completely normal again. So, that overused phrase, the new normal, um, well, at least in terms of velocity of business, the cinemas might never have the same level of traffic again. The gyms might never have the same level of traffic. And other businesses like restaurants and everything, their business model has shifted where they're doing a lot more delivery business. This whole concept of ghost kitchens and everything. I was just talking to or cloud kitchens. I guess those are interchangeable terms. I was just talking to some friends in the F&B industry. They say that I think that's going to have some real momentum where you don't have physical locations per se for dine-in. You just have locations for pickup. I think that's one major trend that I'll predict that takes hold next year, 2022.
I think Lai nailed it. Like, it's not going to be the same. Again, people will still be very, very cautious about spending because, again, like I said, a lot of people have dipped into their savings. So the savings has run dry, or they've been bleeding their savings, or whatever is left of it. So I guess spending also, once it gets back to normal, a lot of people, and this is talking to my friends, a lot of people will try to, get the savings back again, which that means spending will be less. So I see that as so they're saying, cash is king, cash is king. They're going to start being very, very cautious about what they're spending. I think that the number of malls will shut. I think people will start to, I think people will start to be more choosy. I think, Banda Utama will stay open. I think Mid Valley Pavilion and all that will stay open and all that. But I think that the smaller ones will be impacted. You can already see it, like, the smaller ones are, people don't go there anymore. So, yeah, but I do believe that a lot of these smaller malls depend on the smaller retailers and who have already been impacted. The bigger malls like Pavilion, they've got all these large scale Gucci's and whatchamacallit there, so they will probably stay open. But the smaller ones, a guy who has for the last 9 months couldn't pay his rental, lost his stuff, lost his goods, what's he going to do? I had a friend who opened a restaurant in a mall 2 weeks before MCO, spent about $350,000 to start up, and he's bankrupt now. Wow. So I agree with Lai. There are new components of new industries that will start to pick up a little bit. I like the idea of ghost kitchens and stuff. I have a friend from Singapore is already going to be starting it here, so that's going to be happening. The large gyms will have to play ball and start to. I think because why they got away with murder in charging so much. I think people right now understand. You have X amount of dollars. I can spend X amount. So there is right now in terms of importance what comes. So the smaller players need to take advantage of this. And beat them at their own game. Again, like I said, a lot of us right now, what's the word I should be using here? In terms of, to me, I am not afraid or not ashamed of going local, because to me, I think the quality of local has improved a lot. So I think a lot of people will choose local. So and coming back to the government, yes, they've not helped enough, but one thing they can do is to actually drive local consumption heavily. So this will probably, only if they do that, the small boys are going to come up. The multinationals and the big corporations will survive because they've got backups.
For me, my observation is this. I think that when the first MCO was implemented in March last year, I think everybody thought that, this will maybe will be for a few months. This will blow over, and then we'll be back to normal by towards the
Me
end of
too.
the year. Yeah,
Me too.
everybody. I think everybody, individuals as well as businessmen. I think now with the second MCO, I don't think anybody is complacent anymore. And I think that there's a realization on everybody's part that, look, we're in this for the long run. Even with the vaccine, even with herd immunity down the road, this thing is going to impact us for a much longer time than we originally expected. And so, especially with the imposition of the second MCO, it will wake a lot of people up. I think a lot of retailers will say, I really got to do something. Whether they can and whether they have the ability to adapt and to innovate is another question. But I think that nobody thinks this is going to blow over in a few months and that, okay, things will go back to normal. No, I don't think anybody thinks things will go back to normal anytime soon.
Totally right. Yeah. I think just to conceptualize this or to put it in the frame here, I think there can't be a single source of where you sell stuff. There's got to be multiple points of where you can, you call it the multi-hustle here, you have to sell everywhere. You have to sell on Instagram, you got to sell on Facebook, you got to sell on Shopee, you got to sell on
True.
you got to sell on everything.
Yeah.
The single hustle has died. You have to
multiple points.
Yeah, multiple points. A guy I know who is selling honey, who is honey, normal honey. He's selling it on Shopee, selling it on Instagram. He bought Facebook ads, and I'm asking him, where is your biggest point? He says, I make from everywhere now.
The good advice for everybody, which is obvious, is use what's out there to the best of your ability. If you're a small trader, if you're a small business, and react fast. Be proactive. Don't be reactive anymore, especially after the 9 months that we've been through. Anticipate the future, and don't take anything for granted.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Take care.
Bye.